listening to me, Rob Rinder, here at the home of common sense and great British values on Talk Radio TV. Now, I am obsessed with this story, but, you know, I can't just be obsessed. I'm sure you are too. And I wanted to make sure that we got the best possible expert available to talk to us about it. It is, of course, the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial that's happening in America. Amber Heard is set, I think, soon to take the stand in her defamation trial against ex-husband Johnny Depp as soon as Monday, with insiders saying the actress is going to be a highly effective weapon. That's one way of describing it. She's got a $100 million countersuit. And here to give us the legal analysis and the breakdown of the case is founding and managing partner of GS2Law, Rob Garson. And I have to say, not just a personal friend, but very unusually, listeners, it's a lucky day. He is a barrister in England and Wales, so qualified in this country, and also the state of New York and Miami, if I'm not mistaken. Robert Garson, GS2Law.
State of New York, state of Florida, and DC.
And DC as well.
DC as well.
Well, Canana Horror, I'm sure your parents are extremely proud, as am I. Now, I have to say, it's a really unusual thing. We need to just break it down a little. For those of us like me who covered and followed the trial in this country, Johnny Depp lost his case.
That's right.
He brought a case against Amber Heard and the Sun for an article that was published in which it was suggested that well, to be clear, the actual wording was Johnny Depp is a wife beater.
That's right.
And as far as I can remember, Justice Nichols, a judge-only trial, said as follows, that he's satisfied that 12 of the 14 instances of domestic violence occurred, that it must have been terrifying. These are the judge's conclusions, having heard evidence from Amber Heard, and accepted that Amber Heard must have been a victim of multiple assaults. Now, for those of us who are legal watchers of that case, we couldn't understand why Johnny Depp would bring that case here, because all Amber Heard had to do was prove one instance of wife beating. So why did he bring that case in this country, and why did he lose in the UK? Let's start there.
Well, first, why he brought it in the United Kingdom, or in England and Wales, is because historically England and Wales is a forum for people being accused of libel. It's very difficult to win defamation trials in the United States, especially for a public figure. However, in England and Wales, it's a forum. It's where people go to, and they don't have to prove that the burden of proof is substantially different in England and Wales, because truth is a defence. And very few people decide to actually run it in a way that the Sun decided to run it. Very risky strategy, big risk, big reward.
Well, was it a big risk? Now, just break that down if we can. Right. So, first of all, you have to be very, very rich to have a reputation that you can afford to protect, right?
Yes.
A case for defamation, minimum £50,000. We're talking hundreds of £1,000s in legal fees, to say the very least, which means for most people, bringing a case of defamation is completely out of their reach, right?
Yes.
Now, so just help us out here. You talked about the burden of proof in the UK. What does that mean? What happens in a defamation trial here?
Well, in a burden of proof, it means who has to prove what in any given case. Normally in a case, the plaintiff or the claimant will have to prove their case beyond it will be the standard of probability.
Right.
That's normally the sort of case.
Some judges more sure than not.
Exactly so. Right. What happens in a defamation trial in the United Kingdom is that the defendant has to prove truth. Because truth is always a defence.
This was the difficult thing. Bearing in mind the allegation was wife-beating, and bearing in mind the very basic level of assault, which could be unwanted touching, it was a very risky strategy for Johnny Depp to bring the claim in this country, it seemed to us.
Well, tactically, that was something that may have had to have been done, because he had the Sun article calling him a wife beater. He had sued already in Fairfax, Virginia by that point.
I see.
So the question was, if you would have allowed one to go and not the other, then the question would always have been in the United States court in Fairfax, Virginia, but why are you suing us for what we're doing here, or Amber Heard for what we're doing here in Fairfax, Virginia? You didn't go against the Sun over there.
Now, let's take us over the pond to America, because I have to say, I mean, talk about a legal circus. You know, it is extraordinary to watch in every conceivable sense. And it seems to me that it's not really necessarily about the law, that the strategy, insofar as there is one, because I have to say on both sides, the lawyers, I'm not sure if you agree with me, are about as useful and sophisticated as airline salads on both sides.
Well, it depends which class you're flying, obviously.
Good point.
But Robert, they're not you. I remember you when you were in court.
Let's not go mad, Robert.
No, you were magnificent, and they're certainly not me. But I'm not just saying that because that's not my case. We were trained very differently. We were trained from the outset, from the age of 22, 23 years old. We were in trials day in, day out, defending in serious crimes.
Right.
American lawyers don't get that trial exposure in the same way, first and foremost. So they're not as practiced, in my view, as a barrister from the United Kingdom, and that's why, frankly, I've done quite well over there.
Right.
But on the other level, the way that you approach a case in America is different. You're concerned about developing the record at every stage. So they have these patters that you have to go through in order to introduce evidence.
Now, there's a real critical distinction. It's an important one, right? Here, we had a judge making the factual and legal determinations,
yes.
right? And it was a very small hurdle. It seemed to me the judge needed to jump. Was there unwanted touching? If there was one, the reality was Johnny Depp was going to lose.
That's right.
But what mattered wasn't just that all of this stuff that went on in their relationship would find itself in the public square. That's what he wanted. So let's call it what it is. I'm sorry if you're eating now, but the Amber Turd headlines and so on and so
Grumpy.
forth. Right, all of that stuff. Now, in America, it's different because you can really roll the dice because they've got a jury here. So you said before that the law is very difficult when it comes to suing a public figure in America. Explain that, but also explain the benefits of having a jury trial for a civil case.
Well, let's go backwards on that. First, in circumstances like this, you want a jury. Because juries find they normally run along concepts of fundamental truths.
Right.
And especially in America here, you've got seven...
Well, explain what that means to a normal person. What does that mean? Imagine you'd be advising Johnny Depp. I'll be Johnny Depp. He literally communicates through Neolithic grunt, as far as I can understand.
I've got to tell you,
don't sue me, Johnny.
The way that he has conducted himself in this trial is very skilled and very practiced.
I agree. Yeah.
He has kept himself very calm.
Yeah.
First, I don't know who dresses him. He looks magnificent.
There's nothing, right.
But he's kept himself very calm, very monotone all the way throughout. Through 4 days of through 4 days of examination, he was very, very patient, and that was by design. You've got to remember, when you go into trial in America, it's not like over here. You may have had 2 juries that you practiced on in the past and run your trial fully.
Can I stop there? Just to be clear, we can't do that in this country.
No.
You cannot prepare a witness, you can't rehearse them. In fact, it's a very serious breach of the code. So he may have been rehearsed of how to behave in the courtroom.
Exactly
now,
so.
That's very, very important. You said something before, which I think our listeners and our viewers would be very interested in, about how difficult it is to sue for defamation in America. Why is that the case? I know there's a constitutional issue, and you haven't got long, but help us understand why that's the case.
No, it's not just that. First, you have to show the falsity of the publication. But secondly, as a public figure rather than a private figure, you have a heightened standard, a heightened hurdle that you need to show that not only were they false, but they published that with actual malice.
Wow.
Which,
can we just be clear about this? Right, I think the New York Times is the very versus Sullivan is a very important case. First Amendment. In other words, if you're a public figure, it's very, very, very difficult to sue for libel. You are fair game. That's not the case in this country. But there is a really, really high standard that that Johnny Depp's team have to jump in order successfully to succeed here. Help us with what that hurdle is and whether or not it makes any difference in the long run.
Well, that hurdle is that not only did she publish a false article, but she did that with either actual malice or reckless disregard to the truth as to the truth of those allegations. Now, it may not matter in the long run. This may come down to a popularity contest. Many people are lambasting Amber Heard online. They're sticking up for Johnny Depp online. That's a big aspect here. But there's also the sexual points. In opening, for the first time, her lawyer started talking about the fact that she'd been sexually abused as well, which is fundamentally different from what is clearly, or what was clearly, a toxic relationship between two people.
Isn't this really about OJ trialing? Isn't this really about Chicago? In other words, even if Johnny Depp is to lose in the law, that he wins in the court of public opinion, to what extent does that matter when you're preparing a case like this? I mean, you've done public cases, you've represented well-known rappers, for instance, and various other people in the public eye. How important is that?
It could be important because it depends how producers and directors are going to hire him in the future, and whether or not he's going to be like a Kevin Spacey, who is, you know, who's been toxic, hasn't been seen for a couple of years, and I'm sure will make his way back. But it may well be it's worth the risks to run the case.
Right. What's your prediction? Who's going to win, Rob Garson?
Johnny Depp.
Well, you heard it here first. Brilliant lawyer, barrister in England and Wales, founding managing partner at GS2Law, Rob Garson. It's been a privilege to hear from you. I have to say, I disagree. I think Amber's going to win. We're going to have a bet on it. Well, let's see. A bottle of Palwyn's wine is in it. You're watching Rob Rindle, the home of common sense, here on Talk Radio.